Imagine living in a world where you could be sold, whipped, or killed just because someone owned you. Welcome to ancient Rome, but not the version you saw in school. Yeah, we love to talk about Roman legions, emperors in togas, and wild gladiator fights. But behind the marble statues and heroic speeches was a brutal, everyday reality that millions of people were trapped in. Slavery wasn't just a dark corner of Roman life, it was the foundation. Now get this. At its peak, nearly one-third of the people living in Rome were slaves. That's like walking through the city and realizing every third person you see doesn't own their own life. And no, Roman slavery wasn't just about doing chores and fetching wine. It could be horrific. You could be a slave for all kinds of reasons. Maybe you were captured in war, born to an enslaved mother, or even sold into it by your own desperate family. One day you're living free, the next, you're branded like cattle and marched off to work a job you never signed up for. And the jobs? Oh man, they weren't all palace servants and tutors. Some slaves were shoved into mines. Basically, a death sentence. Others were forced to row Roman warships until they collapsed. No sunlight, no breaks, just endless rowing and the constant threat of a whip. Even household slaves, the so-called lucky ones, were still property. They could be beaten, abused, or sold at any moment. Imagine being forced to smile and serve someone who legally had the right to kill you for talking back. That was real. And here's where it gets even darker. Rome didn't just tolerate slavery. It celebrated it. They saw it as a natural part of life. Philosophers, poets, and even lawmakers talked about slavery like it was just another feature of society. Like gravity. You couldn't escape it, because they didn't want to. There were slave markets right in the center of cities. People would gather like it was a farmer's market, except instead of picking out vegetables, they were inspecting teeth, muscles, and scars on other human beings, looking for a goodbye. It's chilling. And don't think for a second it was all just men being enslaved. Women were pulled into this system too, often targeted for abuse, physically and sexually, with absolutely no protection, no one to turn to, no way out. And kids, yeah, children were born into slavery, raised knowing they didn't own their own names. Their fate was decided before they could even speak. Now, here's something that'll blow your mind. A Roman writer once said, "You have as many enemies as you have slaves." That's how aware they were of the hatred simmering beneath the surface. Slaves were beaten down, but not blind. Rebellions happened. The most famous? Spartacus. Yep, not just a Hollywood movie. Spartacus was real. A gladiator who broke free and led a massive slave uprising in 73 BCE. His army of escaped slaves shook Rome to its core. For 2 years they held out, taking on Rome's best. But in the end, they were crushed. Brutally. 6,000 of them were crucified along the Appian Way. A warning from Rome. Don't rise up, ever. It's wild how often that part of Roman history gets glossed over. We hear about their architecture, their politics, their civilization. But that civilization was built on backs that were broken in silence. Rome's glory came at a brutal cost. Even after slavery started to fade in the later centuries, the echoes didn't go away. The Roman model influenced how later empires, yep, even modern ones, structured their own systems of control. Slavery wasn't just a Roman problem. It became a global disease. So yeah, next time you see a statue of a Roman emperor looking all noble and wise, remember there were thousands of invisible hands who built that empire. They didn't get monuments, they got chains. And we should never forget them. If you found this eye-opening, drop a like, hit subscribe, and let us know in the comments what other untold stories from history you want us to dig into. Because behind every empire is a truth they never wanted you to hear.